Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond, where you are tuned to for great new emotional story. Let's enjoy the story. The city pulsed with life, a symphony of honking horns, ringing phones, and hurried footsteps. Towering skyscrapers loomed over the streets, their glass windows reflecting the last golden rays of the setting sun. The air smelled of coffee, car exhaust, and the faint scent of rain that had passed earlier in the day. Inside one of those gleaming towers, Ethan Reynolds sat in his plush leather chair, staring at the endless stream of emails flooding his laptop screen. His office, perched high above the bustling streets, was a modern masterpiece: sleek furniture, abstract art, and a panoramic view of the city skyline. But none of it brought him peace. His tie felt like a noose around his neck, his pulse a constant drum of stress. "Sir, the investors need confirmation by morning," his assistant's voice broke through the chaos. Ethan barely nodded, rubbing his temple. His head ached, his shoulders stiff from hours of tension. He had built an empire, climbing from nothing to the top, yet happiness remained an illusion. He had more money than he could spend, but no time to enjoy it. More power than he ever imagined, but no real control over his own life. The evening deepened, but Ethan remained shackled to his desk, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Deals, mergers, strategies, his world revolved around numbers and negotiations. His phone buzzed with missed calls from his wife, but he silenced it. Later, he thought, though deep down he knew later never came. At last, exhaustion forced him to leave. His chauffeur opened the car door, but Ethan hesitated. He needed air. Dismissing the driver, he walked aimlessly, his expensive shoes clicking against the pavement. The city's neon lights flickered, the streets alive with people, some laughing, some struggling, all lost in their own worlds. Then, by the riverside, he saw him. An old man, sitting on a wooden bench, eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun had almost disappeared. His clothes were simple, his posture relaxed, as if time itself had no power over him. A small, worn-out satchel rested beside him, and in his hands, he held a steaming cup of tea. Ethan frowned. The man looked poor, yet there was no sign of worry on his face. How could someone with so little look so content? He approached, curiosity overriding his exhaustion. "Not a great place to sit, old man. There's noise, pollution, and a city that never stops moving." The old man smiled, his gaze never leaving the horizon. "And yet, the river still flows, the sky still changes, and peace is right here if you choose to see it." Ethan scoffed. "Peace? In this madness? I work my whole life for success, and it never stops. There's always another deal, another crisis, another step up." The old man finally turned, looking Ethan in the eye. His gaze was deep, wise, like someone who had seen 100 lifetimes. "And has any of it made you happy?" Ethan froze. No one had ever asked him that, not in a way that mattered. Not in a way that made him pause. The old man chuckled, taking a slow sip of his tea. "The world taught you that success is complicated, but happiness? Happiness is simple. The problem is, people are too afraid to slow down and see it." Ethan hesitated. The old man's words lingered in his mind, unsettling yet strangely magnetic. The idea that happiness could be simple contradicted everything he had built his life around. He had spent years chasing success, believing that complexity meant value, that struggle equaled worth. And yet, here sat a man with nothing, no mansion, no luxury watch, no boardroom power, claiming he had everything. A sharp gust of wind swept through the riverside, rustling the dry leaves and sending ripples across the water. The city still hummed behind them, distant honks, murmuring voices, flashing billboards, but in this small pocket of the world, time seemed slower. The old man reached into his worn-out satchel and pulled out another cup, filling it with tea from a small thermos. He offered it to Ethan without a word. Ethan hesitated before taking it. The cup was simple, unremarkable, the tea's steam rising into the cool air. He took a sip, expecting bitterness, but instead, warmth spread through him. It was strange, just a cup of tea, yet it felt different. Maybe it was the stillness around him, the absence of urgency, the way the old man sipped his own tea without expectation, without needing to fill the silence. The old man finally spoke. "Tell me something. If you had no deadlines, no meetings, no endless responsibilities, what would you do right now? Ethan exhaled, rubbing his temple. I don't know. That, the old man said, smiling, is the problem. Ethan frowned. I've worked hard to get where I am. I built my company from the ground up. If I don't keep pushing forward, it all falls apart. That's just how life works. The old man nodded as if he understood, but his gaze held something deeper, something unsettlingly calm. Let's test that theory. Just for today, do nothing. No calls. No work. No planning. Just exist. Ethan scoffed. You think ignoring reality solves anything? I think ignoring yourself is worse. The old man gestured to the bench. One day won't ruin your empire. Sit here. Watch the river. Talk to strangers. Walk without a destination. Ethan shook his head, chuckling under his breath. The idea was absurd. His entire life was built on structure, planning, control. And yet, wasn't that structure suffocating him? Wasn't that control the very thing making him restless, exhausted? With a deep breath, he sat back down, loosening his tie. Fine. One day. The old man said nothing, just sipped his tea, smiling like he already knew what would happen next. The hours that followed felt foreign. Ethan had no schedule, no one demanding his attention, no crisis to manage. At first, his mind resisted, his fingers twitched for his phone, his thoughts kept drifting to work. But then, something shifted. He watched the river move in its natural rhythm. He noticed the way the sky changed colors, the way birds skimmed the water's surface before soaring into the sky. He listened to laughter from children playing nearby, their joy unburdened, effortless. He walked through the park, bought roasted peanuts from a street vendor, and actually tasted them. He helped an elderly woman carry her groceries, something he hadn't done in years. And for the first time in as long as he could remember, he felt present. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Ethan realized something strange. The world hadn't collapsed because he stepped away for a few hours. His company still stood. His responsibilities still waited. But he felt different. For the first time, success didn't feel like the most important thing. Nightfall wrapped the city in a blanket of flickering streetlights and distant sirens. The air had turned crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor. Ethan sat by the riverside, feeling an odd sense of peace, something unfamiliar yet deeply comforting. He had spent the day disconnected from his usual chaos, yet the world had not fallen apart. He had not fallen apart. But just as he began to embrace this strange, simple contentment, reality came crashing back. His phone, which he had purposely ignored all day, vibrated violently in his pocket. He hesitated before checking it. Dozens of missed calls, urgent messages, and one email that made his stomach drop. Urgent, financial crisis. His company was in trouble. A major investor had pulled out unexpectedly, causing a domino effect that sent his stocks tumbling. Panic surged through him. Without thinking, he stood up, his mind already racing through solutions. His peaceful day, his so-called enlightenment, it had all been an illusion. Simplicity doesn't solve real problems, he thought bitterly. As he turned to leave, the old man's voice stopped him. Running back so soon? Ethan clenched his jaw. I don't have time for this. My company is on the verge of collapse. The old man nodded slowly. And you think running will fix it? Ethan shot him a sharp look. What else am I supposed to do? Sit here and pretend everything's fine? The old man chuckled, the sound infuriatingly calm. Tell me something, Ethan. If you had gotten this news yesterday, what would you have done? Ethan scoffed. I would have gone straight to the office, made calls, pulled strings, whatever it took to fix the mess. And what's stopping you from doing that now? Ethan hesitated. Nothing. Then what's changed? Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. What had changed? The urgency was still there. The problem still needed solving. But he wasn't the same. His mind, though panicked, wasn't spiraling like it usually did. His heart wasn't pounding with the same suffocating weight. Instead of drowning in the chaos, he could see it clearly. The old man's eyes twinkled as he saw Ethan processing the moment. You see, boy, simplicity doesn't mean ignorance. It means clarity. When you stop carrying the weight of everything all the time, you can actually think. Ethan took a shaky breath, feeling the weight of those words settle inside him. He still had a crisis to handle, but for the first time, he realized he didn't need to approach it the way he always had. The endless stress, the frantic scrambling, it hadn't been necessary, only familiar. He straightened his shoulders, this time not out of tension, but understanding. I need to go. The old man nodded. Then go. But remember what you learned today. Don't lose yourself in the madness again. Ethan turned, walking back toward the life he had built. The difference was, this time, he wasn't running. Ethan stepped into his office just past midnight. The city, once alive with movement, had quieted to a hum. From his window, he could see the river where he had spent the day, where, for the first time in years, he had felt free. But here, in the world he had built, the air was thick with tension. His employees sat stiffly in the boardroom, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. His CFO spoke first, voice tight. We're hemorrhaging funds. If we don't act fast, we could lose everything within weeks. The old Ethan, the one who thrived on control, on immediate action, would have snapped orders, demanded solutions, driven his team into overdrive. But something had shifted. The weight of years of stress was no longer sitting on his chest. He saw it all differently now. Instead of reacting with panic, he did something no one expected. He sat down. Silence filled the room. His employees exchanged glances. They had prepared for chaos, for desperation, for the familiar whirlwind of Ethan Reynolds in crisis mode. Instead, he was calm. We need a plan, his CFO pressed. Ethan leaned back. Tell me, what's the worst that can happen? A murmur of confusion spread through the room. His lead strategist frowned. Sir, if we don't act, we could lose millions. And? Silence. Ethan exhaled slowly. For years, I've operated under one belief, that more is better, that losing means failure, that every moment must be controlled. But what if that belief has been wrong? A long pause. His team didn't know how to respond. Ethan looked around the room. We need to restructure. Not just for this crisis, but for the future. We need to stop running on fear. We built this company on purpose, on passion. When did it become just about survival? For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking like a man desperate to hold on to everything. He was thinking like a man who understood what truly mattered. And that realization was more powerful than any financial strategy. Days passed, and something remarkable happened. Instead of drowning in panic, Ethan approached the crisis with a clarity he never knew he was capable of. He restructured the company, made bold yet mindful decisions, and, for the first time, trusted his team instead of micromanaging everything. Some losses were unavoidable, but they were no longer terrifying. They were just part of the process of life. One evening, long after the storm had settled, Ethan found himself back at the riverside. The city lights shimmered on the water, the cool breeze whispering through the trees. The bench where the old man once sat was empty. He hadn't seen him since that night. Ethan smiled to himself, placing 2 cups of tea on the bench, one for himself and one for the man who had changed his life. He didn't know if he would return, but the lesson remained. Simplicity wasn't about having less. It was about seeing clearly, about living fully, about choosing peace in a world that thrived on chaos. He took a slow sip of tea, savoring the warmth. For the first time, he wasn't just a businessman. He wasn't just chasing success. He was living. If you found this story meaningful, if it made you reflect on life, success, and happiness, then be sure to subscribe to Storytelling and Beyond. Here, we bring you stories that inspire, move, and transform. Don't forget to like, share, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change your perspective. See you in the next one.